Brian's going to start in less than 60 seconds. Okay, this video is going to be about, it's all connected. This video is going to be about the grand jury indictment. And many of you will start to see, or it's going to be with more clarity as to why you've seen a lot of posts about starting grand juries throughout the country. So that being said, first one, which one should go first? Well, this will go. Brian will do this. This is another book Brian read. Brian's read quite a few books over the past like four and a half months. This one. It's Chief Justice at the top. What is that? I forget his name. Forgot that quick. Wow. Then you have Associate Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and you have Chief Justice Earl Warren, and you have Associate Justice Thurgood Marshall. The top, about to say John Jay, it's not John Jay. Forgot that quick. But anyway, Brian will remember in a second, probably. But also, Brian wants to read to you a couple of things. And Brian's going to incorporate what he's about to read into the main basis of this live stream video. So that being said, Brian will start. One, there are quotes and other stuff, but Brian's going to read some quotes from the past justices that have served. This one's from the late Thurgood Marshall, when he said, "Where you see wrong or inequality or injustice, speak out, because this is your country. This is your democracy. Make it protect it, pass it on." That hits home with Brian, and so you really know why Brian has been doing what he's been doing over the past few years. This one right here, the last part, you're gonna most of you will recognize. The beginning you will not, because when we've seen this quote online, the very beginning, it's not in there, but Brian's about to read it. Anyway, experience should teach us to be the most on our guard to protect liberty when the government's purposes are beneficent. Men born to freedom are naturally alert to repel invasion of their liberty by evil-minded rulers. Now, listen to the last part. The greatest dangers to liberty lurk in insidious encroachment by men of zeal, well-meaning but without understanding. Sound familiar? That was a dissent meaning in Homestead versus the United States court case in 1928 by Louis D. Brandeis. Remember that? That's the whole quote. Another one. Well, hold on a second. Brian wants to speak on that, so it makes better sense. The greatest dangers to liberty lurk in insidious encroachment by men of zeal, well-meaning but without understanding. Now, you can incorporate that as with all the corruption we have been finding out at an alarming rate by police, prosecutors, Kamala Harris, by prosecutors, Kamala Harris, by prosecutors, Kamala Harris, and by judicial canons, violations by judges, and so forth and so on, and politicians with their corrupt selves also. So, Brian wanted to throw that in there as to put more of a meaning to this, to that phrase, to that quote. There's another one, a very good one, Brian wants to talk about. When the rights of any individual or group are chipped away, the freedom of all erodes. That's the quote. That's by Earl Warren, and that quote was in the Law and the Law and the Future, November 1955. Well, that's obvious. Don't really have to speak on that, but Brian will read it again. When the rights of any individual or group are chipped away, the freedom of all erodes. again, you have to stand on your right. You have to study the laws because, like Brian told you before, everything you look at in life. If you look at a car that was involved in some kind of court case because of some kind of manufacturing defect, if you look at a chair, desk, a table, a refrigerator, that was involved in some kind of product liability case. If you look outside the streets, something was involved with two people when it comes to a civil matter. If you look on the pavement, somebody walked in the pavement with a hole, that involves a liability matter with the city. If you look at just an array of things, everything that you look at, your eye sees when you walk outside that door, even inside your homes, when you look around, something, some kind of object has been involved in some kind of court case, something. So Brian will reiterate this again. When you say, and Brian used to be guilty of it until he woke up, when you say, well, I don't have to worry about that because it doesn't involve me or doesn't apply to me and blah, blah, blah. Yes, it does, just not at that moment, but it does apply to you and it will. Just give it time. Another one, here's a good one. This is by, well, anyway, Brian will read it. There can be no free society without law administered through an independent judiciary. If one man can be allowed to determine for himself what is law, every man can. That means first chaos, then tyranny. Legal process is an essential part of the democratic process. That was said by the late Felix Frankfurter, concurring in the opinion of the United States versus the United Mine Workers of America, 1947. Now, Brian wants to talk about that quote because some people have said, well, you know how Brian has said that next time he sues somebody, he's not going to do it in the court. He's going to sue them in their private capacity by sending them contracts, certified mail return receipt. Well, just like here, the late Felix Frankfurter says, if one man can be allowed to determine for himself what the law, or what law, can determine for himself what is law, every man can. Well, technically, that's true if you know the law. If you study the laws, if you study the procedures, if you study the federal rules of civil procedure, the local rules of civil procedure, the local rules of evidence, all of that, and you know it, why can't you administer the law yourself? Here's the thing. You're doing it in honor when you start exchanging contracts with whoever wronged you, be it a cop, be it some kind of state agency employee that works for the Department of Motor Vehicles, works for the Child Protective Services, that works for the Department of Labor. It does not matter. Anyone that you have a beef with on the local, state level, you can contract with them, you can sue them or let them know that you're suing them, but you're doing it through the contracts. So technically, like he said there, you're not, if you don't know the laws and don't know shit about it, and if you're just doing it on a conclusionary basis, or if you're doing it on an opinionated basis, then yeah, you are taking the law to your own hands. However, if you are exchanging documents, pointing out their errors with laws that are already on the books, and you're also further citing that with other authorities and so forth, in the context that he's talking about, taking the law into your own hands, you're doing it by opinion. You're doing it without knowing the fuck you're doing. So, when next time Brian has a feeling it's going to happen, Brian contracts with somebody because he's going to sue them in their private capacity, or Brian's going to know the law very fucking well, and he's going to give them three opportunities to make a wrong or right, at the very least, defend it. He's going to give them the first opportunity. He's going to let them know he's suing them and why. It's going to be articulated very well. Second opportunity is going to let them know that he sent them the first opportunity and he realizes through the receipt that they did receive the documents. And Brian's still going to pursue his goal, his mission. And the third one is going to be the final warning to make a wrong or right, to give me remedy, so forth and so on. Then if they don't do it, the fourth one is going to pretty much say, okay, you fucked up, so now you have allowed Brian to garnish anything from you that he sees fit that's within reason to get his remedy. So you're still staying in clean hands with good faith and in honor. So Brian wanted to put emphasis on that also. Here's another one. Um, oh, Brian wants to explain this. This is a good quote. This is by the late Supreme Court Associate Justice Louis D. Brandeis. The court would not pass on a constitutional question, although properly presented by the record. If there's also a present some other ground on, if there is also present some other ground on which the case can be disposed of. Thus, if a case can be decided on either two grounds, one involving a constitutional question, the other a question of statutory construction or general law, the court will decide only on the latter. Do you understand that? Brian will read that last part again. Thus, if a case can be decided on either of two grounds, one involving a constitutional question, the other a question of statutory construction or general law, the court will decide on the latter. So, that being said, what he is saying there, and that was in the court case of Ashwander versus Tennessee Valley Authority in 1936. That was a very good court case, by the way, because there were other very meaningful things in that court case, but different discussion later. What he's saying there is this: they need to decide on the statutory construction of whatever so-called law the state has delved in, because if the statutory construction of that law, which is really statute, because you can't say that's a statutory law, because we all know that statute and law are not the same. So technically, it should have said on a statutory policy. So we're going to say that. So the bottom line is what he's saying is they need to decide if the statutory policy was constructed right to stand under the Constitution, to even be in the same fucking ballpark, the same field, the same area of play. If not, it's void. Period. That's the crux of that. So that's why Brian loves to read a lot of quotes, because you can get from a lot of quotes their mindset also. But the one Brian really wants to talk about, we've all brought this up many times, and it hits home very well. Brian can't find out. Brian's about to talk about, I want you to keep in mind what he just said. Where the hell did it go? I thought you could have at least marked it, but I guess you didn't. And naturally, Brian's going to come across it after the video ends. How ironic. So, yeah, Brian lost it. Apologies. Because it's a very good court case. Okay, anyway, Brian's going to get into the last half of this. But the main thing, area of this video, about grand jury indictments on the federal side. But technically, this applies to any state and federal, doesn't matter. And it's been ruled that the grand jury is a fourth arm of the government. You have the executive, legislature, and the executive. And, ooh, pardon. Where the heck did that come from? Wow. Dang. Ooh, pardon. Wow. Anyway. The jury is its own body. So, point being is this. You know how they give the jury instructions and they make the jury take an oath and blah, blah, blah. They're not supposed to do that. They only do it because they've gotten away with doing it, and something that's been done on a consistent level in life, doesn't matter if it's law or whatever, it's been taken as to be as being true, and that's not true. It's false. So Brian's going to read to you this very, 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 very important by a former lawyer who quit and became a professional poker player. This is an article from 2009, actually, by the way, January 22nd. The title is, "The Federal Grand Jury is the Fourth Branch of the Government." By the way, the late, Brian's favorite, the late Justice Antonin Scalia has said the same thing also. And this article is by Leo C. Donofrio, can't pronounce the last name. capital DONOFRIO. JD means Juris Doctor. He's talking about the grand jury here and how the system has fucked us over. How ironic. So, and this is because they changed the federal rules of civil procedure back in 1946. And Brian's skipping up to the middle of this of this article. An indictment is a written accusation of an offense preferred to and presented upon oath as true by a grand jury as a suit of the government. You get that part? Brian will read it again. An indictment is a written accusation of an offense preferred to and presented upon oath as true by a grand jury at the suit of the government. So bottom line is, what the government gives to the grand jury, that's when the presentment comes into play. But the main thing of this video on this part is that the government doesn't give the grand jury everything. It's supposed to. It's required to do so. Brian will explain. The article goes on to say this. An indictment is framed by the officers of the government and laid before the grand jury. Presentments, on the other hand, are the result of a jury's independent action. Well, that's one key part right there, independent. So they are independent from the other. To be blunt, the jury has more power in that courtroom than the judge and the prosecutor combined. Most aren't aware of that, but they do. The article goes on to say this. A presentment, properly speaking, is an accusation made by a grand jury of its own mere motion of an offense upon its own observation and knowledge or upon evidence before it, and without any bill of indictment laid before it in suit of the government. Upon a presentment, the proper officer of the court must frame an indictment before the party accused can be put to answer to it. Here's the thing. And distrust district attorneys, you are obligated, and Brian will quote you all saying, in the interest of justice, and Brian will quote this other saying that you all in Lawland uses, as in the matter of law, you're supposed to tell the jury everything about the case. You all don't do that. Perfect example. There's been many court cases regarding the Fourth Amendment, Brian's favorite place of study. Believe it happened in the state of Indiana several years back. The police stopped the gentleman. I forgot what the stop was about. It was something minor, bullshit. Long story short, they ended up searching his car. He had all kinds of drugs stuffed in the door panels of his car. That court case, that went to the Supreme Court. It got overturned because it was a wrong search. Here's the thing. Here's what Brian's talking about. This is very important. This is why Brian says prosecutors are duty bound to do this, but they don't do it. They are obligated to do this, but they don't do it. Here's what I'm going to give you a little role play. Now, when we went over this in one of Brian's law class, I believe it was the Federal Rules of Evidence. Anyway, group of people come in, potential jurors comes in, the prosecutor, distrust district attorney presents facts to the jury. They do that part. Brian will attest to that. However, they leave out certain parts, and that's the part that pisses Brian off because they are not supposed to do that. They're supposed to tell the jurors everything. Case in point. I hate to even fucking do this shit, but Brian's gonna do it anyway. Fuck. Wow. Brian's gonna pretend he's a prosecutor. Unfucking believable. He even said that shit. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you've been asked to come here today regarding a crime that occurred on such and such date at ABC location. What occurred is the police pulled over this car because of a taillight that was out. Upon further review, upon further investigation by the police, it come to find out there were drugs in the car. Upon additional investigation by the police, there were drugs stuffed in the panels of that car. Crack cocaine, guns, and stuff like that. Very dangerous. According to these rules and laws on the federal side, this, and this were violated. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I presented these facts to you. I'll have you go and talk about it, think about it, yada, yada, yada. And the state or the government, in hopes that you come back with a true bill, which means a proper indictment, to come back with a presentment to carry on to have them indicted. That's pretty much it. However, it should have went like this. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you've been asked here today to answer or to investigate, or whatever they want to put it, a crime that Officer so-and-so uncovered. During the original stop was regarding a tail light that's being out. During the stop, there was an additional investigation. Now, here's the part where prosecutors are supposed to tell the jurors also. Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the police violated the rights of so-and-so because Supreme Court case, forgot what it was off the top of my head, articulates very well that a police stop cannot go beyond the intent of the original stop, which is regarding the tail light. So for them to apply further to search and investigate more when there was no evidence for them to do so, that actually violated the laws of so-and-so that was arrested and trying to get an indictment against. See, that's the part they're supposed to also tell the jury. But they don't. They leave that part out, though. Now, someone can argue, well, Brian, if they did that, they'll never get the indictment. Too fucking bad. Oh, well. If the cops from the beginning had followed the proper law, wouldn't have to worry about that. And then someone can argue and say, well, Brian, if the cops had followed the proper laws, all those drugs and guns would have just went on their way. Oh, well. Oh, well. Oh, fucking well, it's life. Why? Because your first and foremost duty is to protect the law. That includes, but not limited to, the procedures of the law. Why do you think so many court cases get overturned? And going through all that rigmarole, what else just happened? Think about it. The courts and all that kind of time and shit was tied up for nothing because the process was not done correctly. Oh, but it gets better. Now the person that was accused, guilty as fuck, by the way, no doubt about that. However, since the process was not done correctly, now they're going to come back and sue and they're going to win. Brian will repeat that. They're going to come back and sue and they're going to win. And someone can argue and say, well, how can you sue? You had all that illegal contraband and blah, blah, blah. Doesn't matter. The process was done illegally. That's it. So leave your fucking personal emotions out of it. Leave your crybaby emotions out of it. That's irrelevant. The purpose of the law is to keep uniformity across the fucking board. No matter how bad it hurts, you take it. That's just the way it is. Because if you start doing shit by opinion, you start leaving out a little bit of this and a little bit of that, it's going to explode exponentially to just being all fucked up. So that's life. You're not going to get everybody. You're not going to get your bad guy all the time. That's oh well. Oh fucking well. And that's the point. Now, some of you all still disagree with that. That's your problem. Brian will tell you this though. That process, as many of you already know, Brian's articulated it extremely fucking well with all kind of evidence over the years. That process, that lackadaisy process, meaning not going through the process in its entirety under the laws, has also gotten so many innocent people convicted. Now, you want to skirt that system a little bit and cut corners and use your emotional opinions? Well, Brian will ask you this. And this is why a lot of judges and justices throughout the world, doesn't matter what country they're in, cite the late, I believe it was an English judge, Blackstone that said, and many of you heard this quote, it's better to have 100 guilty men go free than have one innocent suffer. And that's fact. Now, some of you may be twiddling along in your minds. Well, Brian, that's not bad. This one innocent suffering, that's not bad. Really? Okay. Peep game. You're innocent, correct? Why don't you go to Pelican Bay State Prison or Attica Prison or Mongolian Prison and take the place of somebody else in there for about 5 to 10 years? Why don't you go do that? And while you're in there, tell yourself, oh, this one innocent's not bad. One can suffer. Hold on a second. Brian's not hearing any volunteers. Hold on a second. No. Nope, no volunteers. Wow. No volunteers. But, and Brian's saying, I've seen this many times, oh, one suffering, one innocent person suffering is not bad. So go take their place. Didn't think so. So those that are saying that, and Brian, people that knows Brian very well, Brian will say this to your face physically, shut the fuck up. Oh, sorry, you say something? Yeah, that's what I thought. Now Brian wants to look for this one other quote right quick. Oh, here it is. Now, actually, Brian's glad he found this quote and found it last. And the reason is this. Now, what Brian just said about how unlawful prosecutors do, bringing up corruption and so forth and so on, and how much corruption people are uncovering more and more and more because of this technology. Listen to this shit. Now, this quote Brian's going to read, many of you heard this quote, especially the last half, also by the same justice, by the way, but this one in particular. Just listen. Decency, security, and liberty alike demand that government officials shall be subjected to the same rules of conduct that are commands to the citizen. Do you understand? In the government of laws, existence of the government will be imperiled if it fails to observe the law scrupulously. Our government is the potent and the omnipresent teacher. For good or for ill, it teaches the whole people by its example. You understand? The last part here, everyone has heard this quote. Crime is contagious. If the government becomes a lawbreaker, it breeds contempt for law. It invites every man to become a law unto himself. It invites anarchy. By the late Justice D. Brandeis, dissenting opinion in the Homestead versus the United States, 1928. All the corruption people have seen, from Child Protective Service agents, from police, politicians, judges, attorneys, all the laws that they're violating. Starting to get the picture? Brian's going to read some of this again because it's invigorating. Brian's going to say something else, but that would have been disrespectful. In a government of laws, existence of the government will be imperiled if it fails to observe the law scrupulously. Our government is the potent, the omnipresent teacher. For good or for ill, it teaches the whole people by its example. Brian's going to stop there. Well, a lot of police, a lot of attorneys and judges, politicians, you've been leading some very bad examples. So technically, you're teaching the regular people to also do bad and then some, and it will be lawful to do, since you motherfuckers have been engaged in all kinds of unlawful acts and justifying it as being lawful when it's not. But hey, since you're doing it, hey, Brian's is quoting. That means we can do it, right? Right? Right. Crime is contagious. If the government becomes a lawbreaker, them motherfuckers been breaking the laws. Wow. It breeds contempt for law. It invites every man to become a law unto himself. It invites anarchy. Now, one can say, well, they can use that and other things as an excuse to violate the law. That's true. However, that's not true. Because depending on someone's belief, when they look out into the system, out into the world, that they have supposed to have respect and trust within those that are carrying out the laws, they violate the laws themselves. Therefore, they become a lawbreaker. You lead by examples, baby. So again, you all are breaking the motherfucking laws all of the time. So why can't we? It's just a question. So, that being said, Brian would like to thank you for his time. Oh, and by the way, Brian's curious because a friend told Brian, said that he noticed when Brian, he says, when you do live stream videos, the clarity in your voice is better than the other videos when you do prior and then post them. So 99% of the time, Brian doesn't even review his own videos. He just posts them and he goes on about his fucking life. But Brian's just curious. If that's true, just drop a message to see if that's verified. But that's what a friend told Brian. He said he knows the last few live stream videos that your voice, he goes, your voice, the clarity is even better. So if that is the case, the only thing that Brian can deduce is because live stream, and Brian's told you this before, it's like literally there are like thousands of people before me live. Well, they are because it's on the video, but or physically before his eyes, even though he's looking at a wall right there. But you get the point. So maybe that's where it comes from. Maybe it's a subconscious thing. Don't know. Haven't figured it out yet. Law, and motherfucking law. Life can be a bitch. And then you die.